Hey, and welcome everybody to this week's Money Monday. Today I'm digging into a little bit of a controversial subject in some way. Controversial because it pushes against how most business owners think. So I've worked for years with business owners who spend a lot of time becoming absolute experts in the service they provide their clients. And of course, that's an absolutely wonderful thing to do. Absolutely wonderful thing to do. Wanting to be an expert, increasing your skills so that you can serve your client better. Or so that you can produce a better widget that serves your client better. However, what most business owners don't realise, that put all that effort and energy into becoming an expert, is becoming an expert won't make them successful in business. And they think it will. And that's why they put that effort and energy into becoming a super duper expert at what they do. Now let me get clear here. As I said before, it's really important that you do become an expert, because that's how you serve clients the best of your abilities. Just don't think that in itself is enough to make you successful in business. You can have the best widget, the best service in the world, but it won't make one iota of difference unless there's another element that comes into that equation. That is marketing. So it's more important that people perceive you as an expert. So there are people with way less skill sets than you, with widgets that aren't as good as yours, that are doing way better financially. Why? Simply because they understand that marketing, positioning, the stories that are told are more important than being perceived as an expert. So think about that for a second. Think about business owners that you know that deliver a lower quality service than you, or a lower quality widget than you, your company, but they're killing it. That's because they understand that the marketing, the storytelling is the most important thing. Now, we live in the cult of personality era. Now, there's always been the cult of personality. I remember there was a band in the 90s, I forget their name now, but they were an amazing band, and they sang a song about the cult of personality. It's really funny because what's this? This is, 2000 and nearly 2020, and we now elect rather, I don't know what you'd call them, we have presidents and people leading countries who have very large personalities, somewhat unstable personalities as well. So think about that. Isn't that fascinating and interesting? That we now elect presidents based on their personality. Where else in the world, as an example, where else in the world would ex-actors become presidents? So America really, really trumps, there's that word, the cult of personality in leadership. You see Putin, same thing. Now, if we bring this back to business, and we bring it back to what I said before, which is it's really great that you spend a lot of effort and energy to create the most perfect widget, the best widget in the marketplace, or to upgrade your skills and services so you can provide the best for the client. But that, as I said, contrary to popular opinion, isn't going to make you wealthy, isn't going to make you successful. As I said earlier, it's more important that you are a master of marketing. And by the way, a little hint, your business should be set up so that 50% of your organization's spend on hours, including yours and staff, should be going into marketing. The more time spent marketing, the more success you have. So a lot of businesses that I work with get crunched financially because when you look at the amount of time they spend marketing, it's very low compared to the amount of time they spend doing everything else. The equation's wrong. So another way of looking at this, when we come back to the cult of personality and marketing versus studying really hard to be the best at what you do, is that the higher the income, the more the person is paid for who they are rather than what they do. I'll say that again. The higher the income, typically the more the person is paid for who they are rather than what they do. And this is what you can consider the cult of personality, the Trump factor, and especially in this day and age. So these marketers, these successful companies are spinning a story, are standing out through extravagantness in the way that they promote themselves, the way they communicate. They're using the cult of personality that the presidents and the leaders of countries, that we just wouldn't have seen them years ago because we would make more rational decisions. But now I think people have got way less time and they're making way more emotional decisions. So it's more important to cultivate what happens up front in your business. The stories you share, how you communicate, how you stand out, and how, and this is where I want to go with this, how you position yourself. How you position yourself as the leading expert. So people perceive you're the leading expert. That's a game in itself. So a person who's in integrity will study to be the best they can be or to produce the best widget they can produce. But they also understand that that's not going to make them money. They'll just do that because that's who they are and who they want to be. They understand that mastering the communication, the story, the positioning out there in the marketplace, that they have the best, are the leading experts, they'll win the game. And that's always how it is. And this is why we can come back and we can say the higher the income, the more the person is paid for who they are rather than what they do. Now, if we start to look at this, and I'm fortunate that I've worked with some very, very high net worth individuals, the more money someone has, typically the more they seek out the positioned expert or the product that's positioned the highest. Again, they may not be the leading expert and they may not be the best quality product, but they seek out the service or product that's positioned highly, that's more attractive to their sense of status or their sense of I must be aligned with the best. So that's a job in itself. And when you start understanding this stuff, you start to understand and you start to think about the psychology of marketing, the psychology of people, and what you must do to break through the noise, to attract and be positioned in that way. That's when things start to shift for business owners. I'm thinking right now of a particular lady that I coached. I actually can't mention her name. She's quite famous here in Australia. And the world perceived her as the best at what she did. And she worked in a particular industry. I can tell you the industry, in the salon industry, in the fashion industry, in the hair and beauty industry. And she was seen all over the world as this leading expert. And she was positioned as a leading expert before she had any runs on the board or any collateral. She mastered the spin. Now, I didn't think she was an integrity, but she's been hugely successful. She was a client of mine, as I said. And once she built her profile and did really well, she built out all her teaching infrastructure and what have you. But still, it was a very interesting thing to see. I used to work with many of the world's top marketers. Certainly here in Australia, I coached many of the top marketers. And they were all involved with the big marketing networks in America. And Georgina and I used to travel with them. And, you know, we'd be shocked. They could just sell so much, they'd make so much money. And they weren't that great at what they did. They were just great at the story, at the spin, at understanding what they needed to say to get people on board, to purchase. And Georgina and I used to have discussions about the morality of marketing. So again, what we suggest is that you understand that approach, that marketing and positioning and how you are perceived, which is what you must control, or how your widget is perceived, which you must control, is more important than it actually being the best, okay? Or you being the best. It's more important how you position it. And then be in integrity and provide the best quality service. Okay, that should get you thinking. I think it's really interesting. I'm going to be doing a fair bit of this stuff for the next little while. I'm preparing for the Fire Yourself workshop up in the Gold Coast on the 15th of September. I'll put a link below for those that are interested in coming. But as I prepare for that, I'm starting to prepare my teaching content for the day. And a lot of what I'm teaching will be contrary to what you would normally get and hear from a business development expert. And a lot of what I'll be sharing comes from my time working with very high net worth individuals and watching what they did. I was advising them as well, because they would always ask me. But people don't understand or know this, but I spent many years with those marketers, and I actually still do with a couple of marketers here in Australia, because they run all their marketing strategies past me because they know I understand archetypal patterns. So Perry, here's where I'm going with this. This is what I want to do. And I'll go in and read the archetypal patterns that they're hitting. Now, if you're hitting archetypal patterns, you've got sales. So as an example, just to show you how this works, I work with an organisation here in Australia, and they concentrate on marketing to females. And when they bring out a new product, they'll come to me, and here's an example of an archetypal pattern. An archetypal pattern is that most women in their, somewhere between 40 and 50, and there's a couple of categories to this, go through transitional changes. So transitional change in that 40 to 50s time frame is, you know, the lady's she's been working hard, she might be working and a mother, and in that she's just given, and she's been giving to the relationship as well. And she gets to a certain point and she's starting to feel frumpy, maybe starting menopause, and she's starting to feel frumpy and not that great. So this is archetypal, people. This means 95% of females will experience this, okay? And at that point, they're starting to go, they feel like they're losing their attractiveness. They feel like they're losing their meaning for life. And at this point, you can see, well, that person's going through that transitional phase. They've got a lot of pains and problems and aspirations. So what are some of the aspirations? Well, they want to feel attractive again. They want to know what's next after motherhood. They want to get their meaning back outside of giving to their children and their husband and in their place of work. So these marketing agencies, this one that I'm talking about, they'll data mine me for that. And that means that they're matching their product offer to the exact problems and aspirations of that archetypal pattern. So they get high level sales as a result of that. So I'll be sharing more of this kind of thing as I lead up to the Fire Yourself workshop. And I'll put a link below for those that want to come. Thanks everyone. I hope you get a lot from it. See you on Wednesday. Catch up.